but we do have at least a portion of that warning that does extend into the Magnolia Road area south on the southwest side of Thomas County. So there is a high potential that we still have some tornadic concerns being indicated with bright shades and a very clear twist, very clear, distinct circulation area, which will be crossing Highway 319 within the next couple of minutes. Near and south of Highway 12. That's where we have the indication of our latest spin. Here's the radar that you may be more familiar with. This will also be another situation where you're not going to see anything that's actually touching the ground. It's going to be wrapped in moisture and wrapped in rain. So it's not going to be totally visible. But you can likely hear the winds and the effects of the rain that's falling across this region here. So the Ammonia neighborhood, Lake Ammonia, Highway 12, and Highway 319, Thomasville Road. Those are going to be the more susceptible points where we have the highest concern for a possible tornado that can be tracking across Highway 319 just south of the state line. Areas around, say, Sunny Hill Road. You'll need to be on guard. You'll need to find shelter. In fact, we're seeing deeper shades of blue, which gives the analysis tools a little more of confidence that this is picking up debris. And this very well correlates with the increased signatures, the increased levels of intensity. We'll still see if we can get some wind speeds to come along with this, but nonetheless, there is still a very high likelihood to have a tornado, an active tornado in northern Leon County, close to the intersection of Highway 12 and 319. Moving to the northeast, so this would take it in the general direction of Sunny Hill Road. This will also take it towards the state line, into Grady County, into southwestern Thomas County. So there are plenty of reasons that if you are in this region, you need to take shelter. That's the sheer path, just the overall history of where we've seen the shear markers, where the radar is indicating where the spin is most likely to occur. And that has been a very reliable tool in our tracking today, and it continues to show maybe a little bit of a broadened indication of spin or just overall wind motion within this. So, you know, that's a possibility that is kind of evolving and reconfiguring itself. It's back off quite a bit from the earlier signals of extreme shear. But we still, nonetheless, have a point where very strong winds are being indicated. If we were to go off of the math, that would be about 70, 80 miles per hour of shear. Very strong winds in a tight circulation that doesn't span very broadly. And that is a clear indication that a circulation is likely causing a tornado, hence our confirmed label that's been given by the National Weather Service in response to this same circulation that made its way across Lake Jackson and over portions of southwestern Leon County about half an hour ago. Kind of weakened and broadened, and now kind of spinning right back up, getting tighter, and giving off the signals that there is a high likelihood of having a tornado on the ground. And it looks like maybe some reconfiguration going on with the status of the warning. It is still in a confirmed phase. It is still covering areas at the state line, but crossing over Highway 319. So that is the zone. Sunny Hill, just north of the state line as well. Grady County, you'll need to be aware of this, especially the southern edge of Grady County. If you're on 319, you're going towards the Beachton Dental Clinic and that gas station that's there, that first little truck stop. That's going to be a zone where maybe this goes just near or to your south. So if you're familiar with that territory, that is a reference point for you. To be aware of where this circulation can go. Gusty winds certainly can create the scenario of low-level spin. The clouds can be rotating around, and the winds can come off of that as well. They can be very gusty. You don't have to have tight spin to have effects from gusty winds. You don't have to have the funnel or whatever form it's in going right over you. Yeah, that would enhance your winds most definitely, but even on the outer edge of that wind field, it's definitely something you don't want to be caught outside in. Here's the latest scan just coming into Titan radar, and it does have that clear indication of circulation at Highway 319 and Sunny Hill Road. What does the debris signature look like? There's the debris signature. It's still there. That's on Sunny Road, right on top. So Sunny Hill and Middle Road, this is heading in your general direction. And again, that's an indication that something more than just moisture, something more than water is being picked up by the radar. It's solid matter, it's debris. And it just goes hand in hand with a lot of the other markers that we've seen. There's our shear rate marker from our exclusive analysis tool here on Titan Radar and First to Know Weather, right on top of 319 and Sunny Hill. This will keep on pushing in the northeasterly direction. So again, the circulation itself may stay south of the beach and area proper and the furniture store and those locations, but it will still come kind of close to your south. If you are in southernmost Grady County, let's see some of the neighborhoods that may be popping up on labels here. Holton Lane, Mercy Seat Road. That's going to be one area farther downstream from this that can certainly encounter what circulation is intact within this portion. We'll just call it a tornado because all signals are showing that. And the National Weather Service describes it as a confirmed tornado warning. So we'll just call it what it is. Spring Hill Road at the state line, over towards Stringer Road and north to Metcalf Beachton Road. Those are going to be some of the areas where this tends to move, and it's not necessarily going to just crawl like a tortoise. It's going to continue to make its ongoing push in that general direction. This is north of Tallahassee proper. This is south of Thomasville proper. So this is not going to move into the core of our more populated city centers. However, any neighborhood that's affected by this will certainly be adversely affected by it, especially given off the signals that we've seen, the strong indications of the wind shear, even greater evidence of very strong circulation over a very small area. And the overall trends, let's see what the storm threat scale is showing. Not really highlighting strong circulation, but again, it doesn't have to be strong. It doesn't have to be a monstrous wedge tornado. Any kind of concentrated area of wind and the force that it can exert on things will cause issues for friends and neighbors along the state line and to the east of Highway 319. And that shear marker, or rather the debris signature, is still there. So all accounts still show this is an active tornado situation that is tracking right along the Florida-Georgia line between Leon and Grady County, east of Highway 319, and moving mostly towards the east-northeast. So we'll have this starting to push right along the far southern edge of Grady County over the next few minutes. The warning is in effect until 12:45. So this will still be an issue that will cause problems for folks who are near and east of Highway 319 along the state line. If you're in certain neighborhoods here on Spring Hill Road in southern Thomas County, southern Grady County as well, you are going to be in the path of this likely tornado. Take shelter right now. Make sure it's downstairs, interior room, no windows, preferably a bathroom. Bathroom has plumbing. It kind of reinforces the four walls around you, and it's an ideal spot if you don't have anything better. I know tornado shelters are not common around here. We don't have basements all that much, so we don't have those formal structures that some folks in Tornado Alley or Dixie Alley have. However, there are still reasonable ways that you can be protected from the effects of the winds that this thunderstorm will give off over the course of the next few minutes here, right along where Leon, Grady, and Thomas County meet at the state line. There's a likelihood for some hail, I'd say, around the Beachton area. Let's go ahead and do the storm threats to see what kind of hail indicators. It's kind of weak, surprisingly, but nonetheless, that is a point where we are seeing at least some concentration of sustained inflow, which can maybe support some hail. So it wouldn't be surprising if we do see some hail within that segment of the thunderstorm. So if you're in the southern side of Thomas County and far southeastern Grady County, that's where the tornado will be tracking over the next several minutes. The warning's in effect until 12:45. Let's put a little tracker on this, as long as the overall hand tracker will cooperate. Seems like it's kind of acting a little fluky. Nonetheless, I'll step off. I'll do it myself from in front of the screen. To give you an idea of any of the neighborhoods that are around the state line in Grady and Thomas County that may be more susceptible to seeing the effects of this, and that is still a very healthy circulation. If it is moving northeast at about 30 miles per hour, it will be in the Metcalf area before the top of the hour. So there's a good chance that we can certainly have ongoing storm effects from this system. And I hear the printer going off once again, so we'll see if there's some kind of warning that's related to this or something else that's going on out there. So we do have a very active day, which we had let folks know about because of the overall risk of severe weather. And now we're seeing those spin-ups in a little more of a number that may be a little more discomforting. That's understandable. But nonetheless, we're going to continue to keep you informed on what's going on. So indeed, it's this portion of that thunderstorm that's prompting our latest confirmed tornado warning, which excludes Leon County, but includes more of Thomas County. So there's the warning until 1. It does include Thomasville proper, so that's something to put out there just because it's a fact. There is that warning configuration that gives Thomasville, and especially neighborhoods to the south of Thomasville, a reason to take this storm seriously. It does not promise that the storm comes right up into the Rose City, but I'd say anywhere around and south of Thomasville. So I mentioned Metcalf earlier. That's an area where we can see some of the circulation coming close. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Some of the small towns here and some of the neighborhoods along Spring Hill, Metcalf, Beachton Road, those will be some locations where this thunderstorm and this likely tornado will go. Let's check in on the latest scene from the debris tracker. And yes, there is quite a bit of a debris signature being shown there. So that's the reason why the National Weather Service went ahead and extended in geography and time that confirmed tornado warning, because that is the indication, that's the tornado debris signature that tends to indicate where we have a circulation. Now, I'll need to kind of maybe expand this out because it has two separate little areas there. Likely just this one, though. That's going to be the point where we have the signature that corresponds with where the most likely tornado location would be. So this is just a couple miles outside of Beachton, right around the Grady, Thomas County line. We'll zoom in here for a few more neighborhoods and roads that can be in the path of this. As we mentioned earlier, if you're near the Spring Hill Road, south of Thomasville, that's going to be a point where this tornado, this likely tornado, will likely track through. If you're over towards Metcalf Road, that's going to be another point where we can see this continuing to move in that general direction. So near and north of Metcalf, between there and Thomasville. Going to expand it just a little bit more. Hopefully the overall motion here will be reasonably slow to detect where it has been going and maybe kind of project where it may go from here. So that is the spin, as we can see, moving through northern Leon County and then beginning to move into Thomas. It's basically paralleling Highway 319, moving just off of 319 in southwestern Thomas County, but is moving mostly towards the northeast. So if our radio partners at Hot 104.9 are still listening, this is going to be a storm, and the circulation and the likely tornado that will move along 319, closing in on Pebble Hill, the Cincola Road, Walden Road, I think, is within that region as well. So those are going to be some of the neighborhoods within the course of where this storm may go. So I can understand and agree why more of Thomasville proper has been included in this warning, because it's not just moving in more of an east fashion, but maybe kind of splitting north and east. So that can take it into the southern edge of Thomasville over the next few minutes. The shear markers have kind of decreased. There's less of that red. There's none of that yellow. That indicates a little bit of a weaker, maybe a little more disheveled circulation, but nonetheless still intact. And if there's a corresponding debris signature drop off there, there still is. So I wouldn't necessarily equate, less of the intense shear as something that would mean a decreased chance of a tornado on the ground. I don't think that's the case at all here. I do believe that we still have enough of the circulation intact to keep a very rough system going, although these things do evolve, as we've seen today. They kind of go back and forth, they weaken, then they kind of use the environment that they move in to encounter stronger winds, and they kind of revive their circulation. So these systems come and go in cycles. They can be kind of fickle like that. And it's just because you don't necessarily want to drop your guard because it tends to weaken in this case, because it can always come back like this one did. And it is still causing the higher likelihood of a tornado here in southern and southwestern Thomas County. There's also the possibility that it's kind of spreading out and creating more of a strong gusty wind effect, and maybe less of a twisting, violent wind effect. But it's tough to deny that I'd say the debris signature is a little more messy. So I wouldn't rely on that big swath of blue. I'd say this one here, and I'll step back on the screen momentarily, but this one here south of Metcalf and Metcalf Beach and Road, I say that one probably lines up best with a lot of the signatures that we've been seeing with this thunderstorm. That lines up a little more better with the where a circulation may be prompting a tornado to occur. But it's getting a little messy. It's still capable of the output of strong gusty winds, pardon me, and right along the highway, the Spring Hill Road over into, say, Highway 19 eventually, is where we'll have the rest of this section of the system going. So that's going to be more of a focus in Thomas County and not so much in Leon County. Now, it doesn't mean in Leon County that there's not going to be any adverse weather. In fact, there's still plenty of rain. There's still at least some lightning connected to that more intense thunderstorm. But at least around the city itself, there's a little decrease in the overall intensity and the fierceness of the storms that are around. I'd say still be aware of occasional lightning flashes and downpours. But the tornadic portion of the thunderstorm is moving away from Tallahassee, and that warning, the severe thunderstorm warning that encompasses coastal Wakulla County, so far not seeing indications of spin or twist, so there's no corresponding tornado warning with that. However, lightning has been pretty compact and very frequent and quite vivid, I'm pretty sure, across the southern edge of Thomas County. So that's where any kind of wind gust with this, even if it's just kind of a broad circulation or just a straight wind gust, there's going to be that kind of effect being felt in the Metcalf area and south of Pebble Hill. So up and down Metcalf Road, those neighborhoods, southern suburbs of Thomasville, those will be some areas susceptible to the gusty winds. And you've got rain in Thomasville proper, but this is outside, or rather the rain that you have right now is not directly connected to the circulation that we're monitoring moving, say, 4 or 5 miles to your south. It is moving to the northeast, and it can come close enough to where there is that ongoing possibility for at least some occasional gustiness that can come into the southern edge of the Rose City. So keep that in mind, even though there's a little less of the overall circulation being detected and a broadening out of the wind fields. There's still a pretty potent thunderstorm, even if it doesn't have that tight circulation fully intact like it was earlier. That's still going to be a gusty trend for friends and neighbors in southern Thomas County, where that tornado warning continues for officially about another 20 minutes. It's in effect until 1 o'clock. The Leon County portion of the warning is likely to be discontinued or at least expired on time, as there's really no other indications of tornadic circulation coming back into that portion of Leon County. So I'm not overly concerned, at least as of this point, and based on the system that we've already had and the rain, that kind of consumes the energy in the atmosphere to where getting another tornado or something similar to come on the backside of that would be less likely. So I think from here on out for the afternoon in Leon County, we're probably just going to deal with occasional lightning, thunder, maybe a quick wind gust, but less ideal for a tornado to come back into Leon County at this point. Nonetheless, things can happen unexpectedly, and we'll continue to monitor things as we need to. But across southern Georgia, in Thomas County is where that circulation is. We'll try to pinpoint where the circulation is, and again, it's getting a little less identifiable. I'd say right about in this spot. The brighter shades kind of overwhelm and consume the circulation indicator. So this is, to me, kind of transitioning into a little bit more of a straight wind gust situation with maybe a lesser or a broader circulation. But nonetheless, the warning is still in place. It is a good idea to make sure you stay sheltered where you are, not try to venture outside. I do see decreasing signals, and curious to see if there's any kind of new indication of debris other than the noise that we have here. I would discount that. But I would say that maybe that extra signal that we saw earlier is kind of diminished a little bit more. I don't believe this is debris. I think this is a little side effect from just the overall wind field that's out there. So I am encouraged by the signals that I see here as far as is something still on the ground. It's going to be tougher to sustain under these conditions. Nonetheless, it is a good idea in Thomasville, especially if you are south of there, to stay put where you are until this goes through. And make sure you heed the advice of the warning, and keep the volume up on the TV so you can kind of hear what's going on in relation to where you are, because our warning is going to continue for about another 20 minutes here in Thomas County until it's determined that the warning is no longer necessary. But given the history of this thunderstorm and how it's tracked for quite a distance through several counties with various modes of intensity, there's still a good reason, just given what it's done, to not let your guard down all that much with this thunderstorm that is within our state line area and in more so Thomas County. So the Leon County section of the warning, we'll see that's going to be expired, as I see from the National Weather Service information line here. Rather, that's the severe thunderstorm warning that's going to expire on time at 12:45. The tornado warning still officially continues, as does the tornado watch, which expands across many other counties. Tornado watch simply means as the thunderstorm line continues to push to the east into the eastern side of the Big Bend into south central Georgia, we could still have these occasions where the spin occurs within a few pockets of these that can produce a quick tornado. And as we've seen, sometimes the same little section of that thunderstorm kind of ebbs and flows and weakens and strengthens. So we can see that kind of trend from time to time. Not guaranteed to see it here in the eastern side of the Big Bend area, but there is that possibility. In fact, I recall from Sunrise, one of our analysis tools, our forecast tools for storm strength, had tracks that went right across the central Big Bend and into Thomas County. And it seems like that's verifying, because we're seeing that kind of trend of intense storm action and very strong wind dynamics coming into this region and affecting those very same areas that if you watched us on Sunrise, you would have known that we were seeing indications of some of these tracking through the central portions of the Big Bend and the state line of South Georgia. So that's what we've been seeing, and that continues to be a concern. Now the heavy rain in Thomasville and what's connected to that circulation is staying south of the city. Still some faint spin indicators there. And again, it's getting a lot more messy and a lot less distinguishable as far as where there might be circulation. But there's certainly a good bit of wind gusts that are going on here. If we were just to take this sampling from the Tallahassee radar, so this is an elevated perspective of how much wind may be occurring. The wind gusts here are on par 50-55 miles per hour, but that's elevated by probably about 2,000 feet. But there's still a good bit of rain that's coming down, so that can certainly blend in and kind of enhance the wind gusts that the heavy rain is causing just because of the nature and the force that the raindrops give. So just kind of enhances the wind gusts and makes things a bit more hazardous on the 19 corridor between Glasgow and the Thomasville area and the southern edges of the city and the downtown area. a little more of an industrial portion of the city there. So that's where a lot of this intensity is going to focus and maybe clip some of our southeastern Thomasville neighborhoods. Maybe not so much of a circulation necessarily, but definitely an indication that the strong outflowing wind gusts will start to move across various neighborhoods around Sunset Drive, Cone Road, into the lower Boston Road area, and eventually into the Easton neighborhood, where some of those locations can encounter those strong wind gusts and perhaps even a little bit of a brief spin. But we're seeing at least a little decrease in the overall system and its capability of keeping a tight spin intact. So with 15 minutes to go officially with this warning, we'll see if there's any kind of reason based on National Weather Service analysis to keep this going. Nonetheless, the warning is still intact and it is affecting Thomas County. So we're going to continue to stay on it until that warning is dropped. And I'll switch back and forth to see what information is coming through the National Weather Service, what they're eventually determining what to do with this. Nonetheless, and again, it sounds kind of repetitive, and I do regret if I sound like a broken record. But nonetheless, it's important to keep in mind and remind folks that when you have a warning, it means something is happening. And it's not just wise to discount what's going on, because based on these various analysis tools, and I'll be curious to see what kind of on-the-ground sightings are discovered with this, there's decent reason to continue to keep that guard up for areas here in southern and southeastern Thomas County, though the gusts may be more linear and not so much of a spin around. And I would certainly suspect, given our recent trends over the last 10 minutes, that there's perhaps less of a debris signature. Again, I'm discounting the discoloration north of Thomasville. Still some kind of faint circulation, but again, where we're seeing the overall spin in relation to its strength, it doesn't really match up. It's not quite as clear-cut as it was when we were looking at the thunderstorm and it was over northern Thomas County. So that is something to keep in mind for folks who are still monitoring the situation here across the southern edge of Thomas County, where heavy rain is still going to affect you for a while and the lightning will still be frequent, but there's a decent opportunity that perhaps we can see a little bit of a diminishing trend in the overall circulation that this thunderstorm cell has been exhibiting, and perhaps we can see a change in the status of the warning as conditions tend to dictate as we go into the region. Now, interesting little analysis that I'm reading off screen, but nonetheless, there is that possibility where the overall circulation is still kind of faint, but still capable of causing the winds. And if there was at least some kind of debris still picked up, that's usually something that's more in tune with a fairly strong tornado. But again, I think it takes a little more detailed analysis to make a connection that, you know, debris may have been picked up that far aloft to be detected that far ahead of any kind of circulation. So I'm definitely curious to see, again, what kind of circulation may have been intact and how that may have influenced the behavior of this thunderstorm. But again, it's becoming much harder to find a distinguishing, clear-cut spot of circulation within that Thomas County cell. However, southeast Thomasville, over towards Boston, over towards Easton, good idea to continue to take the warning as it is and stay appropriately sheltered until the warning is discontinued or the storm goes by you. And it will do so over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'll examine this one here across southern Wakulla County. That's where we have a severe thunderstorm warning. It's in effect until 1. There haven't been many sightings of spin within this, and no tornado warnings have been issued here in the southern extent of Wakulla County along the coast, so around Ocklawahnee Bay. But there's definitely the ongoing trend of gustier winds and a little bit of weak shear that's being shown, but it's just not been potent enough, it's not been intact enough to warrant any kind of upgrade in the warning status here across Wakulla County. Nonetheless, if folks were taking their boat out or trying to take in the views around Shell Point and whatnot, this is certainly not the type of weather to accomplish that because of just the nature of the thunderstorms that have been coming through. The gusty trends, whenever we see this kind of bend, this little curvature in a cluster of storms, it definitely indicates where there's some decent, strong wind forces at work here. So fortunately, it's not worse than it is based on what we're seeing and the trends here along the coast. But I think it is proper to let folks know downstream from this, Taylor County, Madison, Lafayette County, some of this activity will start to move in your general direction over the next couple of hours. And again, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to have tornado warnings here, there, and everywhere. But the thunderstorms as they are, they will still be capable of creating gusty winds in local spots, maybe triggering a few more warnings, drenching you with rain and causing the hazardous lightning. If nothing else, it's just not wise to be out in an active thunderstorm that has lightning anyway. So, you know, maybe that's reason enough. But if you need another reason and you get a warning, then you know that something is legit. And there's certainly a reason to avoid being exposed to the hazards of a thunderstorm like that. So going back here to Thomas County, absent any kind of confirmations from law enforcement, from National Weather Service, or from other sources, other official sources, still having difficulty trying to spot where the circulation is connected to this. A little bit of a weaker form, still a broad field of generally gusty trends. The darker the shade, the lighter the wind gust is being indicated on radar, but the brighter shades here likely showing that we still have at least a good amount of wind output that's even riding up beyond the scope of the tornado warning. So along 122, Pavo Highway, Pavo towards Barwick. Those are going to be some of the neighborhoods that can have the gusty winds, even though you don't officially have the tornado warning. Mostly straight line winds, it looks like. Not really seeing something that's kind of wrapping back up again like it did in northern Leon County. So again, that's kind of the evolution. Tightens up, uses the energy around it, and then it kind of broadens out and maybe expands. And that's what we're seeing, at least in my perspective. That's what we're seeing here in Thomas County for the most part. Maybe not something that's fully intact with the ground, but definitely something that can warrant some ongoing caution for folks who still may have to work around this. If you have a project or if you're a part of a construction crew and this storm is going to interfere with you, and it may, quite frankly, have to put off the rest of your plans for the day until the thunderstorm goes by and our conditions get better. Also be aware of the likelihood of steady rain. That can cause high accumulation, spot flooding. That's certainly a possibility here across not just Thomas County, but a broad expanse of our region because of rain totals that can amount to about 1 to 2 inches. As we work into the next 8 minutes to see whether or not this warning will be discontinued, I'll step off momentarily. I'll see if the National Weather Service says they're going to expire the warning, because they will put that notice out there in cases where they don't anticipate the thunderstorm to really hold itself together to keep the warning going. And that's exactly what I'm reading here. They're saying that the warning will be allowed to expire. The circulation is not as distinct as it was. In fact, it's hardly identifiable, not really identifiable. So they are choosing to let the warning expire. And to me, that tells me there's not much, if any, risk of having a tornado redevelop from this warned zone. So just keep in mind in Thomas County that you will eventually have improving weather conditions, but because of the existence of the earlier confirmed tornado warning and some of the evidence of debris and whatnot, there can be some hazardous travel conditions in your neighborhood, not just in Thomas County, but also keep that in mind in northern Leon County. Be aware of the possibility of maybe some pockets of damage, if that is indeed what happened, that can maybe get in the way of your typical travel routes in areas that were affected by this likely tornado. But from all accounts, it looks like things are decreasing in terms of the overall potential for there to be a tornado with this specific cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer away from our over-the-air coverage. If we still have a stream going, we'll keep with it until 1 o'clock. But for our viewers who are expecting to watch Mathis Court on ABC 27, we'll take you back there now.